Hi everyone, Domagoj Buden here, Mybo Pro Shooter since 1st of July, and I'm here just to do a quick rundown on my current setup and quick tuning tips or kind of whatever I go through to get my setup running as good as it is. So first and foremost, I'm running the Mybo Revolution 40, 60 pounds. I think we put a bit heavier limbs on just because I like running it like that. So they're maybe around 63, 64 pounds, and then I just open them up a bit and lock with our nice pocket safety system. Stabilizer wise, I'm running Arizona bars, Denali on the front, that's the new stabilizer from AE, and Skyline on the back. Please don't ask me why I'm running two different bars. Bailey's running the Denali on the back and Skyline on the front, and we're just being silly with it. So yeah, I'm running custom-made weights from my dad. Half of the equipment you'll see on my bow will be custom-made by my dad or my family. As are the strings. I trust in my dad's strings with my life. They've gone through temperature differences and everything, and absolutely zero change. Sight-wise, I'm shooting Excel Achieve XP with AVX scope and Feather Vision lens. I think it's 6 times magnifier. I'm running the AE Freak Show QD wrist with a standard 12 blade, as most would be pretty shocked why I'm running a 12 blade and not an 8 or a 10, because a lot of professional archers are running a very soft blade, where, as we are gonna see in the other videos, my draw length is very long, which causes me to have a very long arrow, which then causes me to have a very heavy arrow. And I realized that if I'm running a standard 10 blade, I seem to get some flyers. I don't know if they bounce a little bit or just the blade is a bit too soft. So I've always been running a standard 12 for outdoors and a wide 12 for indoors. Setup wise on the stabilizers, I'm running 19 ounces on the front and 18 on the back, which is different from my previous setups because this bow seems to like it more front heavy for me. And I currently have 5 ounces on the riser. Good thing for me is the fact that I don't torque the riser too much, torque the grip too much when I draw back. So the lateral limb adjustment we currently offer on our bows, which is there to help you eliminate the torque that you're producing, which you can see, we explain it even better in the other video. I only adjusted it the tiniest bit and everything is perfectly in line and square to the target. Arrow wise, I'm running a Gold Tip Pierce Tour 340 right now, might be playing with 300 soon. 130 grain point, AE 1.6 vanes. Also, I wouldn't call it controversial, but a bit different, as everybody is running the 2-inch vanes. And I always felt when I put the 2-inch vanes on, they group well, but I feel like these group 5% better. And on top of that, I'm running a Biter Hunter pin knock. And the last bit of my equipment are the release aids. Day to day I'm running the Scott Sigma. This is literally my favorite release aid of all time. I've never had an issue with it. The only issue that you can mention is it was maybe scratching my D-loop at one point. I polished the hook the tiniest bit, and that's the only issue I've ever had. I've never had a change in travel, change in timing, never failed for me in bad weather conditions, and I kind of feel like I'm probably gonna be shooting this release aid forever, as I have around 10 at home. And this is my practice release aid. It's the Scott Longhorn. I think it's Micro Pro. That's my practice release aid when I have some changes on the form and just want to reset my technique. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, I'm running a little bit heavier limbs, but my bow is wound open to 58, 59 pounds. And my let-off adjustment right now is on around 70%. I think I'm running around 17 and a half pounds holding weight. I might want to increase that, as I feel like it might benefit me in wind. But we'll see. At the moment it's behaving pretty good, but I might increase the holding weight a tiny bit. Coming on to the stabilizing system, I always, on all of my bows, always prefer to have the sidebar up, because I feel like when the mass weight is close together, it behaves more unified. And then when I stabilize it like that, I like putting the little like brick of weights on the bottom of the bow to just stabilize the bow left and right when the wind hits the top part of the riser or something, that this kind of stabilizes it and brings it back quickly. Setup wise, as I always teach everybody that I coach, outdoors, we'll see if we can show it on camera, I align the bottom line of the bow square with the top of my nocking point. And I only tie one nocking point, which is the bottom nocking point for compounds, because that's where I found that the D-loop perfectly aligns with the middle of the arrow when I draw back. You align the bottom of the bow square with the top of the nocking point, so exactly where the nock is gonna sit. And I always have it that it barely touches the blade. And then for indoors, I would do the same thing, so it needs to barely touch the blade, but on the second line of the bow square, where you can see right now that would mean that my rest is obviously too high for indoors, as I would need to lower it for a thicker arrow. Okay, so when we go further into the setup, we tie the nocking point now, and I'm running, just so you know, I'm running the height of the nocking point just above the rest hole, which means I'm running it just a little bit higher than some people would, because I always feel like the bow will aim a bit better. It's not gonna dip as much down. But afterwards, after we've done that, I'm going to go on 18 meters because I have a range at home. I'm gonna go to 18 meters and shoot bare shaft. And I know this is, again, a bit not controversial but different. A lot of people care about paper tuning a lot. I don't give any significance to paper tuning because I feel like I've tested it so many times that the paper test didn't equally result in the groups on 50 meters or 18 meters or whatever. Or a great arrow flight through the paper on 2 meters didn't really give me a good group. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't, but I didn't really find correlation between the two. It can sometimes be good to show a problem, but I don't use it even for a starting setup on me. So I would usually go on bare shafts because of how I don't torque the bow too much. My bare shaft should be pretty solid. So if my bare shaft is really far left or really far right, usually means something is wrong. Again, doesn't work for everybody, as people like Ella Gibson, Mike Schlosser, Matthias Fullerton, who torque the bows an extreme amount, their bare shafts will always be really far. And I think for all three of them it's really far left. For me, if I went that far left, it means something is wrong with the setup, as I don't produce that much torque on the bow. I will go through the bare shaft tuning on 18 meters and just get it approximately in the yellow on an indoor face. And my next step will be to go to 50 meters and do slow motion of the rest, where I take care that the arrow is not being taken off the rest left or right, and that at least 70 or 80% of the arrow travel over the blade. We're gonna have control on it. If you lose it at the end, it's not really a problem. You can just rotate the vanes a bit to remove contact. After that, when we are close to that, we will just do micro adjustments, millimeter here, or like left or right or up and down to group tune. And that's pretty much everything I do on my bows to tune. Torque tune, yeah, actually it's not, of course it's not everything, but some things I have set up for so many years that I even forget to mention them. It's torque tune. I always realize that torque tune you adjust with putting the sight out or the rest out or in, both ways. So I usually have my sight set on the fourth hole here. That's more related to field archery because my ranging, my distance judging is by far the best on hole number 4. So I try setting my rest and torque tune around that because it's very important for field. My rest, I realized that on pretty much 90% of the bows I ever shot, as soon as I put the blade, the tip of the blade, very close to the throat of the grip, that's about where my best torque tune is gonna be. That's most probably, again, very related to me lacking in torque on the riser. If it's bad or good, doesn't matter. So another thing that I get asked very often, two things actually, is about cam timing and string stops will get on in a minute. So on our twin cams, I want to time them evenly, because when you run the bottom one too quick, usually on most bows that run two same cams equally on ours, when we touch the bottom one first, you'll get an extreme amount of up and down aim. The only way you can play with the cam timing on twin cams is you can run the top one ahead by half a millimeter. It might help you with shot execution, and it might stabilize the up and down a little bit. It didn't for me on this bow, because there was no need to stabilize it because it was already stable. But I run on this bow, I run them dead even. Probably the question I get the most is, where's my string stop? Why I don't run my string stop, which should be here, and also about my limb savers. So the string stop, first time honestly in my archery career that I got a really good answer. String stops on, let's say, longer brace height bows are maybe not as necessary as they are on shorter brace height bows, because you want to protect your hand from getting hit from the string on shorter brace height bows. But I also noticed before that if I run the string stops how some factories advertise it, all the way on the string or just off the string, I felt like it negatively impacted my performance. And it was just something that when the string is hitting the string stop, the rubber wears off. So over some time, the string is going to go deeper and deeper and deeper, which by my opinion is going to change the tune. But the answer that I got from Ben Jones, Merlin owner, was that the rule about the string stop, so it doesn't affect the performance and how they want to run it, is to put it forwards enough where the arrow always comes off the string before the string hits the string stop. So you get the benefit of the string stop coming down the bow and making the vibration smaller, but you don't get the negative string stop effect on the arrow. So to be honest, I'm actually excited to come home and try it quite a bit forwards to see how it's going to behave. And on the limb savers, I always try them. I always try and remove them. On this bow, the vibration was like 1% stronger without the limb savers. I didn't notice that they were that necessary, and I always like removing anything that can change or like change in different temperatures. We do offer them from factory, but I'm not running them because I don't find them necessary. I think the bow is quiet enough as it is. Another thing we should talk about is how we all fletch our arrows. So there are multiple techniques how to decide what offset to put, left or right. What I like doing is I like going on 2 meters and firing a bear shaft which I marked on the top or wherever, just mark it wherever, shoot it on 2 meters and see where the marking has gone, which way it rotated, because I don't like fletching an offset on the arrow, which is then going to counter the rotation of the arrow, because you can imagine if the arrow goes left and then you have a right offset, it just destabilizes the arrow and just gives you unnecessary destabilization. But also why the offset is good, if you don't have a perfect arrow flight, which most people don't, even if it's just a little bit off, the good offset gives you rotation, and rotation, what rotation does, it stabilizes the rear end of the arrow. So even if the arrow is kicked out of the bow a little bit left or right, the rotation is going to bring it back to center. So I'm running, out of those reasons from previous group testings and everything, I realized that a very strong right offset has been very beneficial for me. I lowered the offset for the outdoors a bit because you also have to count the stronger the offset, the more drag you will have. So you will lose some speed. So you need to find the perfect balance between those two things. Where for indoors, I run as much of an offset as my wrist would allow me, because in indoors you want to slow down the arrow as much as possible. Where outdoors you want to find the perfect balance for both. Also, you can't forget, when you fletch an offset, the nock needs to be offset. The vein is not going to be perfectly in the middle. You need to look at the bottom veins and make sure that they're going to clear the rest. So you always need to rotate the nock a bit. So aiming wise, what I do and what I tell people to do and this is very heavily dependent on having good shot execution. If your shot execution you feel like is bad or just lacking in some aspects, fix that first, because that's most probably a reason what's causing you to aim bad in the first place. What I do is, so you have to understand that when we are under pressure, especially us as professionals, when we go under pressure, our body goes back into our subconscious. So our muscle memory and our subconscious is what takes us to the results that we have. And the subconscious is being built in practice. The way I simulate shooting in my subconscious mind and with my muscle memory is I draw back my bow, put the dot in the middle, and then close my eyes and go into shot execution. I do that on 20 meters. And if I see, for example, if I see it's very strongly up and down, I'll play with the stabilizing system, because that means that it's not correlating with my form and my setup, and my subconscious is not together. Which means, let's say if you shoot a high 7 on 20 meters with your eyes closed and shoot a couple of them and they're all grouping high, I will either remove from the back or add a couple of ounces on the front to bring that more down. Where left and right is mostly dependent on your form. I noticed if you go low left when you close your eyes, it means that your front arm is way too dominant, and you should either slow down the work on your front arm or increase the work on the back. Or if you go high right or right, that means you're pulling way too much, or you should increase the pushing on the front or decrease the pulling on the back. Where I noticed that then if I add some on the front and the group doesn't go down, then I will play with the knocking point height. But that's just a tip what you could do. Please make sure that you're safe and that no one is around, that even if you miss the target, make sure that if you feel like it's dangerous that you might miss the target, go on 10 meters, go on 5 meters, it doesn't matter, you will still get the same result. So make sure to try. You can always reach out to me and we can talk about it more, because I know some of these things can be confusing, but that's what I do to simulate what my body will do under severe pressure. So I've actually gotten quite a few questions lately about my Peep sight and what size Peep sight aperture you should use and how much you should see around here. So I know people mostly use different apertures and we have different logics about it, but I realized Ella Gibson, Mike Schlosser, me, and a couple of others, like good friends of mine, we all have the same logic, where we want to see just the tiniest bit of light around the scope, because the ring of light, what it allows you to center it perfectly. Where if you remove the light, you're never going to be sure if you cut off a third of the scope housing or full scope housing, where the light can help you to center it out perfectly. And also about my Peep sight, a lot of people will use a clarifier. I have to admit, I'm petrified of clarifiers, because how I'm a field shooter, again, clarifiers are very dangerous for us in a sense of one water drop and your whole sight tape will go to hell. I have been very fortunate with my eyes that I don't need glasses, I don't need I don't have any kind of prescription, which is good for me. I can run the Peep sight without a clarifier and my target is almost clear through all the distances. And I also prefer having my target a little bit blurry on 50 meters, because I feel like when a target is way too clear for an archer, you will start over aiming, which then leads you to target panic. So I always recommend most of my archers that I coach is go to my go-to is to have a bit of a blurry target, not crazy of course, a little bit of a blur so you don't over aim. So I hope this was very helpful for everybody, and follow me on all social medias, Instagram, Facebook, everything, wherever you can find me. And here feel more than welcome to reach out to me if you have any kind of questions about equipment, bow tuning, mental prep, absolutely everything. Kick ass and have fun.